Kaaba used to be surrounded by 360 pagan idols. When Muhammad conquered Mecca, he smashed the little idols, but he kept the big idol, this cubical idolatry factory that serves as the focal point of Islamic worship. I find this ironic because unlike so many other people in the world, you Muslims understand that God created us, and that because God is the ultimate source and sustainer of all that exists, we have certain obligations. One of which is not bowing down to stolen pagan temples. Islam promotes idolatry, and this is important because this is an issue where Muslims really think they have all other religions, right? They got all other religions in check here. You guys are all the idolaters except us. Now, as I pointed out in other contexts, false prophets don't come to you and say, hey, let's commit a bunch of idolatry. They come to you and say, hey, let's bow down and show special reverence to this thing over here, but when we do it, it's not idolatry. Exactly. It's only when other people do this sort of thing that it's idolatry.
Face the Kaaba, in which no Muslim will say that Allah's presence fills it in a unique way like the temple in Jerusalem.
So they're bowing down to a empty, let's face it, pagan temple. There's no record anywhere of this ever prior to the time of Muhammad being anything but a pagan temple.
Exactly. That's it. There's no denying that.
But notice what we said. False prophets don't come to you saying, hey, let's go commit a bunch of idolatry.
Truthfully, it's best for a Muslim scholar to address these questions. I'm a rabbi, but the call was made to me, and I will be glad to answer it. Okay. Let me first state at the outset: Judaism is not an eclectic religion. We're not. If you are a true monotheist, if you say that there is one God and there is no other, as the prophet Isaiah and almost every prophet scream this, there really isn't much room for Hare Krishna. So Judaism, unlike Eastern religions as an example, is just not eclectic. Islam is also a complete monotheism. They worship one God, and therefore Islam can't be eclectic. It can't be. You have Judaism and Islam, which are possibly two of the least eclectic religions in the world, Abrahamic faiths, and strangely there is this mutual respect between Judaism and Islam. Which, the reason I point this out is, it just illustrates that there's something really interesting going on here. The reason why Judaism respects Islam deeply is because Muslims truly worship one God. Read chapter 2, verse 163, and you will understand why Muslims submit themselves to one God and no false God.
وإلهكم إله واحد لا إله إلا هو الرحمن الرحيم. Dan Tuhan kalian adalah Tuhan yang Maha Esa. Tidak ada Tuhan melainkan Dia yang Maha Pemurah lagi Maha Penyayang.
Does this mean that Judaism and Islam are identical? No, but there's an enormous mutual respect. Now, leave politics out the window. Just leave it out the window. That's why Jews and Muslims really got along so well for so long. Until recent years, for unfortunately a political problem, but this has nothing to do with this has nothing to do with religion. It has to do with politics, and politics poisons everything. So the question is, if in fact, I will stand up for my cousins. I have no problem doing that. If in fact that Muslims are submitting themselves before the one true God, why are they going on a Hajj, which is one of the pillars of Islam? Why are they going to Mecca, and they're going to what's called the Kaaba? That word simply means the cube, and they're going around it 7 times. Why are they doing this? After all, that Kaaba was a place of idolatry, And it was. And every Muslim in the world will say to you right now that's watching or listening to the show is going, Amen, he's absolutely correct. There were actually hundreds of gods that were worshipped in Mecca during the Jahiliyyah, which means at a time when the Arab world was in a state of, the word really means stupidity or lack of knowledge. Okay? The key point of the Kaaba is that following the advent of Islam, meaning of Muhammad's message to his constituents is, and it's really in Islamic tradition, I should correct that, following the teachings of the Quran, Muslims then took what was a place of idolatry and transformed it into a place where one God is worshipped. So therefore, every Muslim will say, of course the Kaaba was a place where hundreds of gods are worshipped. This is a very well-known part of the history of the pre-Islamic period of Mecca. Everyone knows that. Everyone knows that prior to the advent of Islam, Arabs in that region were burying their daughters alive. So the key is that when Muslims go on a Hajj, which in the Islamic faith, every Muslim is required to do that if they're able to financially and physically. If they're able to, they're required once in their lifetime to go to Mecca on this Hajj. They're not going there worship a cube, worshiping the Kaaba, which means cube. They are worshiping one God, and they are shouting the name La ilaha illallah. So the answer to the question is that the Kaaba was a place of idol worship until the advent of Islam, and the people who are Muslims worship one God, and they worship no other, and that is the most central creed of Islam. In fact, if you don't accept that there is one God and no other, and that God is Allah, and every Muslim believes that Abraham was a prophet of blessed memory. Every Muslim believes that Yitzhak was a prophet of blessed memory. Every Muslim believes that Yaakov was a prophet of blessed memory. Every one of them do. There are disputes among Muslims on fine points, but there is no such thing as a Muslim who does not believe in the Quran. Okay? So therefore, yes, the Kaaba was transformed from a place of idolatry into a place of worshiping one God. And therefore, they're not worshiping idols by going to the Kaaba. They're worshiping one God. And that's what they're expressing in their pilgrimage. So that's the answer to your question.